In the silence of Abraham's heart, a divine voice broke the tranquility. It wasn't a voice audible to human ears, but it resonated with clarity and power greater than the roar of any storm. The message was clear: leave your homeland and your father's house, and go to the land I will show you. This was the voice that marked the beginning of a journey that would change not only Abraham's life but the course of human history. The divine promise was grand: I will make you into a great nation, I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who curse you, and through you, all the peoples of the earth will be blessed. Abraham, born as Abram in the prosperous city of Ur of the Chaldeans in Mesopotamia, was not a man of prominence. His father, Terah, was respected, but their lives followed the common rhythm of the seasons and the rituals of a polytheistic society. However, that call was a break from the ordinary, an awakening to something greater. I will make you into a great nation, I will bless you and make your name great, and you will be a blessing. Genesis 12. How could someone like him, a mere mortal, be chosen for such a grand destiny? Abraham was 75 years old when he decided to overcome fear and embark on the journey God had proposed to him. He didn't know that he would live to be 178 years old, nor that he would become the father of a great nation. But with a heart full of hope and nascent faith, he obeyed the Lord, departing with his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all their belongings towards the land of Canaan. Abraham's journey was filled with hope, guided by the divine promise. They headed northwest, crossing Haran and finally reaching Canaan, a land of fertile hills and valleys, inhabited by Canaanite peoples who lived in fortified city-states, each governed by its own king. Canaan was different from Ur. Here, fields and vineyards stretched as far as the eye could see, and the scent of olive groves and fig trees permeated the air. Although the land before them was rich and promising, it was already occupied by other cities and cultures. Abraham traveled throughout the country until he reached the sacred place of Shechem, under the oak of Moreh. At that time, the Canaanites dominated these lands, and it was there that the Lord appeared again to Abraham, promising, "To your descendants, I will give this land." Abraham then moved to the mountainous region east of Bethel, where between Bethel to the west and Ai to the east, he set up his camp. There, he built an altar to the Lord and called on his name, marking each place on his journey with an act of faith and devotion. The land that initially welcomed Abraham and his family soon became inhospitable when a severe famine struck Canaan. In search of survival, Abraham decided to go to Egypt, the land of the Nile and full granaries. However, aware of Sarai's beauty and fearing for his own life, Abraham devised a plan: Sarai would be presented as his sister. His stay in Egypt was marked by the dissonance between the opulence of the palaces and the slavery of many of its inhabitants. However, God intervened, inflicting great plagues on Pharaoh and his people because of Sarai. Pharaoh, realizing the truth, confronted Abraham, "What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she was your sister, allowing me to take her as my wife?" Ordering his men to escort Abraham, Sarai, and all their property, Pharaoh expelled them from Egypt. They returned to Canaan with more than they had initially carried, but also with a deeper understanding of God's nature: a protector, a provider, an unfailing guide in times of uncertainty. Back in Canaan, Abraham and Lot continued to prosper. By God's blessing, Abraham accumulated great wealth in livestock, silver, and gold. However, the land was no longer sufficient to sustain both and their flocks, leading to conflicts between their herdsmen and Lot's. At that time, the territory was inhabited by Canaanites and Perizzites, complicating the situation further. To avoid disputes and maintain peace, Abraham proposed a solution to Lot: "Let there be no strife between you and me, nor between our herdsmen, for we are relatives. Look at the entire land before you. If you choose to go to the left, I will go to the right. If you prefer to go to the right, I will go to the left." Lot observed the Jordan Valley, a fertile land, similar to the Garden of the Lord or Egypt, before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. He chose for himself the entire lower region of the Jordan and moved eastward, physically separating himself from Abraham. While Lot settled near Sodom, whose inhabitants were known for their wickedness and sin against the Lord, Abraham remained in Canaan. After the separation, the Lord spoke again to Abraham, reaffirming his promise, "Look up from where you are and look to the north, south, east, and west. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and your descendants forever. I will make your descendants as numerous as the dust of the earth. If anyone can count the dust, then your descendants can be counted." Abraham then traveled throughout the land, conscious of the divine promise granted to him, and finally moved his camp near the oak groves of Mamre in Hebron, where he built an altar and communed with the Lord. One day, while Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent in the oak groves of Mamre, the Lord appeared to him. It was the time of day when the sun shone brightest, and Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. Without hesitation, he ran towards them, bowing to the ground as a sign of respect and hospitality. Abraham asked them not to pass by without stopping. "My Lord, if I have found favor in your eyes, please do not pass by your servant. Stop and rest in front of your servant. Let me bring some water so that you can wash your feet and rest under this tree. I will also bring a piece of bread so that you can regain your strength before continuing your journey, for you have come to your servant for some reason." They agreed, saying, "Do as you said." Abraham hurried to the tent where Sarah was and urgently asked, "Quick, take 3 measures of the finest flour and prepare some bread." He then went to the herd, selected a tender, well-fed calf, and gave it to a servant to prepare without delay. Abraham served curds, milk, and the prepared calf to his guests, who were under the tree, and while they ate, they asked about Sarah. Abraham replied that she was in the tent. One of them, whose words carried the weight of divine promise, said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Sarah, who was listening at the entrance of the tent, laughed to herself, incredulous at the idea of experiencing the pleasure of motherhood in her old age. The visitor, aware of Sarah's laughter, asked, "Why did Sarah laugh, thinking she cannot have a child in her old age? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah, afraid, denied laughing, but the Lord affirmed, "Yes, you did laugh." After the men departed toward Sodom, Abraham pondered the divine purpose and prepared to bid them farewell. The Lord shared his plans with Abraham, wondering whether he should hide what he was about to do to Sodom and Gomorrah, since Abraham would become the founder of a great and blessed nation, chosen to teach justice and righteousness to his descendants. Before the impending destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham approached the Lord, interceding for the city. "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you still destroy it?" The Lord promised to forgive the city for the sake of the 50 righteous. Abraham's concern for justice led him to intercede further, reducing the number of righteous required to prevent the city's destruction down to 10. The Lord, in his mercy, agreed not to destroy it if he found 10 righteous people. When 2 angels arrived in Sodom that evening, Lot, Abraham's nephew, was sitting at the city gate. When he saw them, he got up to greet them, showing respect and bowing to the ground. He begged them to come to his house, where they could wash their feet and spend the night before continuing their journey in the morning. Though initially reluctant and willing to spend the night in the square, the angels accepted Lot's insistence and headed to his house. Lot prepared a meal for them, baking unleavened bread, and they ate. But before they could rest, the men of Sodom, young and old, surrounded the house, demanding that Lot hand over the visitors so they could abuse them. Lot went out to confront them, closing the door behind him, and pleaded with them not to commit such an atrocity. In a desperate act of protection, he offered his 2 virgin daughters instead of allowing harm to come to his guests. However, the crowd rejected the offer and threatened to treat Lot worse than the others. When they tried to force their way in, the angels intervened, saving Lot and blinding the attackers so they could not find the door. The angels revealed to Lot the purpose of their visit, the imminent destruction of Sodom due to its great wickedness. They urged Lot to gather his family and leave the city immediately. Lot tried to warn his sons-in-law, but they did not take him seriously. At dawn, before Lot hesitated, the angels took him by the hand, along with his wife and daughters, and led them out of the city by the mercy of the Lord. Once safe, the angels warned Lot to flee to the mountains without looking back. Lot, fearing he would not make it that far, asked for refuge in a nearby small town, Zor. The angel agreed, allowing Lot and his family to take refuge there. When the sun rose and Lot reached Zor, the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah with sulfur and fire from heaven. Lot's wife, disobeying the command not to look back, turned into a pillar of salt. The next morning, Abraham returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord, observing with horror as the smoke of destruction rose from the ground. Although divine judgment fell upon Sodom and Gomorrah, the Lord remembered his promise to Abraham and spared Lot, a testament to divine justice and mercy amid judgment. The devastation of these cities was a grim reminder of the consequences of sin and the importance of obedience to God. After leaving Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham moved to the Negev region and settled there. Abimelech, king of Gerar, took Sarah into his palace, but that night God intervened impressively. He appeared to Abimelech in a dream and warned him that he was about to commit a grave error by taking Sarah, for she was Abraham's wife. Abimelech, surprised and frightened by the dream, defended his innocence before God, claiming he acted in good faith based on the information both Sarah and Abraham had given him. God, in his mercy, responded that he was aware of Abimelech's innocence and that it was precisely because of this that he intervened to prevent him from sinning against him. God ordered that Sarah be returned to Abraham and added that Abraham, being a prophet, would intercede for Abimelech so that he would not die. At dawn, Abimelech summoned his servants and told them what had happened, which caused great fear among them. He then called Abraham and, with great anguish, asked why he acted in such a way, exposing him to commit such a serious sin. Abraham explained that he believed there was no fear of God in Gerar and that he feared for his life because of his wife. He also revealed that by saying Sarah was his sister, he was not lying, for she was indeed his half-sister and wife. Abraham explained that he agreed with Sarah to say this to protect them. Abimelech, in a gesture of goodwill to repair the misunderstanding, returned Sarah to Abraham and compensated them with sheep, cattle, male and female servants. He also offered his lands for Abraham to settle wherever he wished. Moreover, Abimelech gave Sarah 1,000 silver coins to restore her honor. After this incident, God interceded for Abimelech, his family, and his servants so that they could have children again, for God had closed the wombs of all the women in Abimelech's house because of Sarah. God heard Abraham's prayer and healed everyone in Abimelech's house, demonstrating once again his mercy. The Lord visited Sarah and Abraham miraculously, fulfilling his promise in a way that exceeded all expectations. Sarah conceived and gave birth to a son in Abraham's old age, just as God had announced. When the son was born, Abraham named him Isaac, in obedience to God. 8 days after his birth, Abraham circumcised Isaac, faithfully following divine instructions. At that time, Abraham was 100 years old, a testament to God's power and faithfulness. Sarah, overflowing with joy, exclaimed, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." They never imagined that in their old age, they would be blessed with the joy of having a son. On the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham celebrated with a great feast, marking the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. However, not everything was cause for celebration in Abraham's family. One day, Sarah saw Ishmael, the son Hagar had borne to Abraham, mocking Isaac. This led Sarah to ask Abraham to expel Hagar and her son, as she did not want Ishmael to share the inheritance with Isaac. This distressing request weighed heavily on Abraham's heart, for Ishmael was also his son. But God intervened, telling Abraham not to be distressed about the boy or the slave woman, and to do as Sarah requested, for it would be through Isaac that his descendants would be recognized. God also promised to make Ishmael into a great nation because he was Abraham's descendant. With a heavy heart but trusting in God's promise, Abraham prepared Hagar and Ishmael for their departure, providing them with provisions for the journey and bidding them farewell at dawn. God did not abandon Ishmael. When Hagar and the boy were in a desperate situation in the desert, God intervened, assuring them of a future and divine protection. Ishmael grew up in the desert, becoming a skilled archer, and his mother arranged for him to marry an Egyptian woman. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the leader of his army, recognized God's blessing on Abraham's life and sought to ensure a relationship of mutual loyalty with him. Abraham swore to treat them with the same loyalty they had shown him. However, tensions arose over a well that Abimelech's servants had seized. Despite this conflict, Abraham and Abimelech reached an agreement and celebrated a covenant, sealed with the exchange of gifts and oaths at Beersheba, which means, well of the oath. After these significant events in Abraham's life, God decided to test him in a way that would shake the heart of any father. He called Abraham, and Abraham promptly responded, "Here I am." It was then that God gave him a terrible instruction: "Take your only son, Isaac, whom you love so much, go to the region of Moriah, and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on the mountain I will show you." Abraham could not describe the storm of emotions that overwhelmed him at that moment. However, with unwavering faith in God, he got up early the next morning, prepared his donkey, and along with 2 of his servants and his beloved son Isaac, set out. Abraham cut the wood for the sacrifice and they set off towards the place God had indicated. On the 3rd day of their journey, Abraham saw the destination from afar. He told his servants to wait with the donkey while he and Isaac would continue. "We will worship and then return to you," he assured them. Abraham carried the wood for the sacrifice on Isaac and placed him on the altar. When he reached out to take the knife and do what God had commanded, a voice from heaven stopped him, "Abraham, Abraham." It was the angel of the Lord calling him. Abraham responded, "Here I am." And the angel instructed him not to harm the boy, showing that Abraham's fear of God was genuine, for he did not withhold his only son. Abraham looked around and saw a ram caught by its horns in a bush. He took it and offered it as a burnt offering in place of his son. That place was called, "The Lord Will Provide," a declaration that became a testimony to God's provision and faithfulness. The angel of the Lord blessed Abraham a second time from heaven, and together they returned to Beersheba, where Abraham continued to live, reflecting on the profound lesson of faith and obedience that God had taught him on the mountain of Moriah. Sarah, Abraham's beloved wife, lived to be 127 years old. Her death in Kiriath Arba, now known as Hebron, in the land of Canaan, plunged Abraham into deep sorrow. He wept for her and mourned, feeling the emptiness her departure left in his life. After withdrawing from the place of her death, Abraham went to the descendants of Het. He was among them as a foreigner, without land to call his own. Abraham asked them, "Although I am only a foreigner residing among you, I beg you to grant me possession of a burial site to bury my wife." He wanted to acquire it at a fair price to establish a family tomb among them. Ephron, present at the meeting, generously offered both the field and the cave, saying, "I give it to you, in the presence of my fellow citizens, bury your wife." Thus, the field of Ephron in Machpelah, along with the cave and everything it contained, became Abraham's property, formally acquired before the leaders of the community. In that place, Abraham buried Sarah, marking the field of Machpelah, near Mamre, in Canaan, as the family's burial site. This acquisition secured a resting place for his family for generations, a testament to Abraham's life among the descendants of Het and his commitment to the Promised Land. After Sarah's death, Abraham's heart found comfort and companionship in Keturah, a woman he married. Keturah blessed Abraham with more children, Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua, further expanding the family God had promised to Abraham. Jokshan, one of the sons, became the father of Sheba and Dedan, continuing the lineage that the Lord had promised would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. To Isaac, the son of the promise he had with Sarah, Abraham left all his possessions, fulfilling what God had established. Abraham lived 175 years, a life full of challenges and blessings, marked by his relationship with God and his commitment to the divine commandments. When his time came, Abraham died in peace, satisfied with the life he had lived, and was reunited with his ancestors. His sons, Isaac and Ishmael, despite the distances and differences, united to bury Abraham in the cave of Machpelah, the place he had acquired as a family burial site. Abraham left a legacy of faith and obedience that would inspire future generations to trust in God and follow his ways, just as he had done. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to continue learning about topics like this one. Your journey of faith and knowledge is just beginning. And for more quality content about the Bible and its mysteries, click on the video that appears on your screen.